Hello and welcome. Good evening. You're watching Super 6. I'm Akshata Anantagopal, and this evening we're talking about Prime Minister Modi's 35-minute conversation with US President Donald Trump. What's the big headline that's emerged from that conversation? Well, for starters, in those 35 minutes, Prime Minister Modi set the record straight on Trump constantly claiming credit for the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Does this mean essentially we're going to finally see Trump stop all of the comments that he's been resorting to on social media about how he brokered a deal, used trade to ensure ceasefire and whatnot? We're going to be talking about that and the politics that's broken out over this conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Trump. Here are the headlines first. Iran's supreme leader slams Trump after America's kill warning. Khamenei says Iran won't surrender, calls US President's warning absurd rhetoric. Prime Minister Modi dials Trump, calls out US truce bluff. 35 minutes of Modi plain speak for Trump, with a big message to Trump saying you had no role in the truce.
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को स्पष्ट रूप से कहा कि इस पूरे घटनाक्रम के दौरान कभी भी किसी भी स्तर पर भारत अमेरिका ट्रेड डील या अमेरिका द्वारा भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच मध्यस्थता जैसे विषयों पर बात नहीं हुई थी.
Trump to host Pakistan jihadi General Asim Munir for lunch. Days after Trump family-linked Pakistan crypto deal, Pak Army Chief Munir visiting America. Big thaw in India. Canada ties Canada to move to appoint high commissioners again. Mark Carney responds to India Today question on India-Canada ties.
I think the meeting today was important, but I would describe it as foundational, as a necessary first step, an exchange of views, frank, open exchange of views around law enforcement, transnational repression as two examples, an agreement to provide the necessary foundations to begin to rebuild a relationship.
Prime Minister Modi touches down in Croatia to a warm welcome from the Indian diaspora. Prime Minister Modi is the first ever Indian Prime Minister to visit Zagreb. And crashed Air India plane's engine was replaced 3 months ago, now central to probe. Dreamliner had last undergone a detailed maintenance check in June 2023. A 35-minute conversation between Prime Minister Modi and US President Trump took place this morning via telephone. And there's been clear messaging from India on all the ceasefire lies being spread by Trump. How do we do that? Well, Prime Minister Modi sent across a message to Trump to stop all of his claims on brokering a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, and he's done that repeatedly. In the 35-minute conversation, the focus was on Operation Sindoor, on all the ceasefire talk, and on the Pahalgam terror attack. And let's be very clear, this was the need of the hour because of the number of times that Trump has mentioned that he brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And let's put that out also for you, of how many times Trump essentially has spoken about how he was the one who ensured a ceasefire. It started with May 10th, when even before any announcement was made between India and Pakistan, Trump announced, saying, pleased to announce a ceasefire. And he said that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full ceasefire. Now, when that communication came across first on May 10th, it was assumed almost as if Trump had spoken to both leaders, and that's what had ensured a ceasefire. And soon after that, details came out. It was very clear that Pakistan had sought a ceasefire, which is why it had happened. But Trump went on with the ceasefire rhetoric. On May 11th, he went on to even add another claim that it was because he used trade as a tool to ensure the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Every single day since May 10th, as we're showing you on 11th, on 12th, in the days ahead also, Donald Trump continued making all of these comments, saying that he stepped in, his team stepped in to stop a nuclear conflict, and that they ensured that by going ahead and referring to a trade deal, there was a ceasefire that was ensured. Now, despite constant clarifications from India, Trump continued putting out this rhetoric. Nothing stopped him, and on social media, every chance he got, even in fact, public platforms, he'd spoken about how he had helped the ceasefire take place, which is why perhaps the need of the hour was for Prime Minister Modi to directly speak to Trump and say, look, this is not what happened. And then essentially what Prime Minister Modi did in that conversation with Trump is he's made it clear what happened, what led to the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. So a timeline which India has repeatedly reiterated was actually communicated to Trump. What was that timeline? Operation Sindoor, of course, was launched on May 6th. Now, immediately, as per due diplomatic channels, on May 7th, NSA Ajit Doval briefed his US counterpart, Marco Rubio, which is how it should be. NSA Doval spoke to his counterpart. Now, right after that, you also had Rubio speaking to the External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar. The NSA also spoke to the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. On May 9th, and this is the only time that there was a conversation between Prime Minister Modi and someone and a top official in the United States. Who was that official? It was US Vice President J.D. Vance. At no point was there a conversation with Trump. But at this point even, again, there was no talk of ceasefire. Vance reportedly in that conversation warned that there's going to be a major Pakistani counter-strike, to which Prime Minister Modi conveyed to Vice President Vance that India will respond with even greater force, that we're not backing off just because Pakistan may hit us. So it was very clear that even in that conversation, India said, nothing doing, we're not stopping. So what changed in 24 hours? On May 10th, the reason India agreed to a ceasefire is because there was a request from Pakistan. A call from the Pakistan DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations, is what got the wheels turning and the ceasefire happening. So there was no third-party mediation whatsoever. India's stand on that has been very, very clear. This is the timeline we have stuck to. This is the timeline that Prime Minister Modi has actually conveyed to Trump. Imagine that, the US President being told who in his team actually spoke to the Prime Minister and what exactly happened, in an effort to ensure that no longer do you see Trump taking to social media and making non-stop comments about having mediated a ceasefire between India and Pakistan.
You had no role in India-Pakistan ceasefire. No mention of trade in talks with US. India can hit Pakistan harder for terror. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's hard-hitting phone call with US President Donald Trump. 35 minutes of telephonic conversation which demolished Trump's repeated claims of brokering India-Pakistan truce. Prime Minister Modi told Donald Trump that India has opted for ceasefire only after Pakistan begged and groveled.
पूरे घटनाक्रम के दौरान कभी भी किसी भी स्तर पर भारत अमेरिका ट्रेड डील या अमेरिका द्वारा भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच मध्यस्थता जैसे विषयों पर बात नहीं हुई थी। सैन्य कार्रवाई रोकने की बात सीधे भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच दोनों सेनाओं की एग्जिस्टिंग चैनल्स के माध्यम से हुई थी और पाकिस्तान के ही आग्रह पर हुई थी।
Modi's message to Trump was clear, that India's bold new doctrine will consider terror attacks as not proxy war, but war. Modi also conveyed that India has picked only terror hubs for strikes. Prime Minister Modi also declined a request by President Trump for an impromptu stopover at White House after the G7 meet, citing prior engagements. He, however, invited Donald Trump to visit India, which the US President has accepted.
पूर्व निर्धारित कार्यक्रमों के कारण प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने अपनी असमर्थता व्यक्त की। दोनों लीडर्स ने तब तय किया कि वे निकट भविष्य में मिलने का प्रयास करेंगे।
Will the phone call redefine Modi-Trump dosti, which has been tested by Donald Trump actively quoting Pakistan? Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, so clearly in that conversation of 35 minutes, Prime Minister Modi setting the record straight. And like I said, this was the need of the hour. Let's run you through some of the big takeaways that emerged from this particular conversation. It's the first time, essentially, that Prime Minister Modi spoken tough to President Trump on this particular issue. Several takeaways that emerge from that conversation. First, like I said, India set the record straight for the world on mediation claims. Far too many times you had this conversation of Trump speaking about mediation, telling the world. And so India now setting the record straight on that. India also making it clear that amid all of this mediation talk and ceasefire happening because US went ahead and claimed there'd be no trade deal, none of that happened. That in none of these conversations was trade ever mentioned, even in the conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Vice President Vance. Messaging to Trump essentially to stop the loose talk. There's no guarantee it's going to happen. At the end of the day, it's Donald Trump. The Indian administration recognizes that there's no way anyone can stop him from going ahead and making the comments that he wants to make. But the message has been sent across very clear that this will not happen, that Trump, America cannot take any credit for the ceasefire. If you notice the tone of Trump's comments, he's repeatedly attempted to take credit and claimed that America as a world leader has been putting out fires everywhere, including between India and Pakistan. That's something India has said you cannot do. There's no credit that goes to America for this because there's no question of third-party mediation as far as this entire issue goes. It's been very clear our stated position on India and Pakistan and on the conflict is that this is between two parties. There's no question of another country intervening, no matter how much Trump wants to do it. So a red line on loose talk has been drawn, but at the same time, this doesn't mean that this is going to be some sort of soaring point between India and America. That friendship continues. It's crucial for both countries, and we recognize that. What we've done essentially in this conversation again shows our well-crafted diplomacy in the matter. The fact that Prime Minister Modi extended an invite to Trump for Quad, and Trump has accepted, saying he's excited to visit India. But at the same time, in that same conversation, when Trump invited Prime Minister Modi to make a stopover visit in America while he's in Canada before he headed to Croatia to make a stopover visit in America, that was something that Prime Minister Modi politely shot down. So while shooting down Trump's invite, ensuring Trump accepts our invite, well-crafted diplomacy for you right there. Let me bring in our reporters on this broadcast. From India Today Global, we have Pranay Upadhyay, who's tracking all the latest on what really happened in that conversation. We've also got Rohit Sharma joining us from Washington, D.C. on how this news really and this tough talk by Prime Minister Modi to Trump has been perceived in America. Pranay, I'm going to begin with you on what led to this conversation happening, Pranay. How and what was the tone really used by the Prime Minister? Was this hard talk drawing the line, because we've seen far too many comments by Trump and very loose comments at that on the ceasefire?
Akshita, President Donald Trump might be anxious. He might be, craving for showing any trophy or any achievement of his foreign policy, because he has none so far, because he might have tried to broker a peace deal between Israel and Hamas, which did not happen. He might have tried to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, which did not happen. So that's why he was craving to have a byline to show some achievement here. And that's why, if you notice the statement given by the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri here, stating the account of Prime Minister Narendra Modi phone call with President Donald Trump, he mentioned that this is the first phone call after the 22nd of April. Definitely, after the Operation Sindoor, this is the first phone call, a direct call between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that too at the initiation of President Donald Trump, because it was the US side which requested. This meeting was scheduled to take place in Canada, and since because President Donald Trump changed his schedule, he cut short his visit to Canada and he went back to Washington, D.C. and therefore this meeting could not take place. But however, even if this meeting would have taken place, Prime Minister Narendra Modi would have said the same thing right across, sitting across him. And I have been a witness to similar event. Similar thing happened, Akshita, and let me read one post of President Donald Trump. This shows the contradictions and the inconsistency of President Donald Trump's policy. In 2018, President Donald Trump tweeted, and he said that we no longer pay Pakistan the billions of dollars because they would take our money and do nothing for us, Bin Laden being a prime example and Afghanistan being another. This is what President Donald Trump's views about Pakistan. Months later, this was in 2018, months later, when he sat across with the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, he offered to have mediation, but only few weeks after that in Biarritz, France, on the same platform of G7, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi sat across with President Donald Donald Trump. I was witness to that moment, and there also the Prime Minister Narendra Modi politely declined and shut down this offer of mediation by the United States and
essentially
President
there was
Donald
a
Trump.
need.
So President
There
Donald
was a
Trump
need
might
for this
be
kind of
thinking,
messaging to be sent across to Donald Trump. And I'll bring in Rohit Sharma on this. Rohit, there's of course no guarantee that Trump is going to stop any of the comments that he makes on ceasefire. You can never say with Trump what he's going to do or say next or post next for that matter. But how is really this kind of a conversation being viewed in America, Rohit? Is it something that the White House also has acknowledged, that India set the record straight on the timeline and the conversations that were had?
Well, look, the White House has officially not commented on Akshita. I reached out to somebody and they said there would be a readout later in the day. They obviously are focused on the evolving situation in Iran. It was pretty late in the night when this call took place. But I think from India's standpoint, this is a very important phone call. And as Pranay was pointing out, this was needed. There's been a lot of talk about how the ceasefire was achieved, what was President Trump's role. And it was important that Prime Minister Narendra Modi put this on the record directly to President Trump. And it's also created some waves here in the Western media. We've seen flurry of articles in the morning, posts on social media about what Prime Minister Narendra Modi told. And I'm pretty sure President Trump would get asked about it in his media briefing, which he does daily almost. So somebody's going to bring it up with him, and we'll have to wait and watch what he says. But yes, as you said, this might not be end of the conversation. I think President Trump would obviously want to say something or add, his own statement to the phone call. But very important, again, the fact that this is happening on a day when the Pakistani chief of staff is going to meet President Trump at the White House. So yes, there is a lot of buzz around this, and I'm pretty sure the White House will put out a statement whenever they're ready today.
Okay, so we'll watch out for that statement. And as Rohit says, usually there's almost a daily briefing of sorts and interaction with President Trump. So we'll see what he has to say and whether the White House in their statement will also acknowledge the fact that Prime Minister Modi in India has sent across a message that US had absolutely no role to play the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Thank you very much, Rohit, for your time and for joining us here on India Today. Speaking of really the reactions that have come in domestically in the country, you're seeing a lot of politics, Congress questioning Prime Minister Modi over the phone call. But here's what happened. What Jairam Ramesh of the Congress did while speaking to the media is he pulled out a statement, a US statement. But turns out that that was actually an old statement with which Jairam Ramesh slammed Prime Minister Modi. He later backtracked after BJP came out and fact-checked him. Details in our report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's hard-hitting phone call to US President Donald Trump, where Modi rebutted Trump's claim on brokering India-Pakistan peace. The news of Modi's retort to Trump's repeated claims was met with sneering by Congress, which claimed that US is silent on Modi's phone call. Congress also cited Pakistan Army Chief's luncheon meet with President Trump, claiming this as another sign of deepening US-Pakistan ties. Congress claimed India was being sidelined diplomatically.
There is a direct link between the inflammatory, incendiary and provocative remarks made by Field Marshal Asim Munir and the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attacks. And this very man is invited for a lunch by President Trump in the White House. This is a setback for Indian diplomacy.
But Congress was accused of faking the US readout, as BJP highlighted that Congress had used a January 2025 readout to attack Modi. BJP claimed that while the US has itself not come out with any readout, the Congress is amplifying a lie against Modi.
I don't want to dignify the Congress party's ongoing, hallucinatory, I would call it hallucinatory fake narratives that they go and put on. But through all this, I get the feeling they're always looking for some way in which they can show India down.
We know Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. We have seen him as Prime Minister for the last 11 years. He will never, ever, for any political opportunity, opportunistic politics, for any reason, compromise what he believes is the interest of India. So the only people who believed the lies of the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi in terms of this US mediation theory were the clowns who support the Congress party.
BJP has shared chat from US Embassy where US has also denied readout. As the political war of words escalates, the Modi-Trump call has become a fresh flashpoint, not just in diplomacy but on the domestic front as well. With Aishwarya Paliwal, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let's talk about the other big focus here, which is that at 10:30 p.m. tonight, India time, you're going to be seeing the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir sitting down for a private closed lunch with President Donald Trump at the White House. So you've got the US President actually hosting the Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan. What really explains that? And this is also the timing of it extremely crucial because, as I told you, it's coming right after that conversation, the phone call that Prime Minister Modi had with Donald Trump about strong messaging on terror. And yet, clearly, this is duplicity being shown by America at a time when there are rising tensions of West Asia. Perhaps that's the only reason America is looking at getting Pakistan on their side as well. Remember, Iran's top general just days ago claimed that Pakistan would retaliate with nuclear weapons against Israel if Tehran were attacked, an assertion denied by Pakistan's defense minister, who said no such commitment was made. Pakistani US nationals staged a protest yesterday denouncing Munir as the butcher of Islamabad. And that's the moment there where, in fact, they called him a mass murderer, they called him a dictator as he walked by. But essentially, Trump is going ahead and giving Asim Munir a platform where he's going to be meeting him at the White House. And let me again reiterate, he's not the head of the nation. He's the Chief of Army Staff. But it speaks volumes, really, of who essentially calls the shots in Pakistan. He's getting a closed-door lunch meeting with Donald Trump. And two takeaways on that. One, questions will be asked about what really the US's stand is on Pak terror. Are they going to be condemning it? Second, whether President Trump, by inviting a Pakistani army chief, someone who's clearly openly shielded terrorists, by inviting him into the White House, is actually going ahead and bringing down the dignity of the president's office, of the White House in America. But that's an America problem that they will have to address after this closed-door lunch. There's a lot of talk that perhaps it's also because of Trump's family's own vested interests that he is going ahead and hosting the Pakistani army chief in the White House. But let's unmask Asim Munir for you. Let me play out for you the statement that he made just days before the Pahalgam terror attack, where he went ahead and spoke of Hindus and Muslims, spoke of Kashmir as Pakistan's jugular vein. Mind you, this is the Pakistan Army Chief, the very same man who's now going to be meeting with Donald Trump for a lunch.
पाकिस्तान की कहानी अपने बच्चों को जो है आपने जरूर सुनानी है ताकि वो पाकिस्तान की कहानी ना भूलें. Well, our forefathers, they thought that we are different from the Hindus in every possible aspect of life. Our religion is different, our customs are different, our traditions are different, our thoughts are different, our ambitions are different. That was the foundation of the two-nation theory that was laid there. That we are two nations, we are not one nation. So because of that, our forefathers, they struggled, mounted that incessant struggle to create this country. Our forefathers, they have sacrificed immensely, and we have sacrificed a lot for the creation of this country. And we know how to defend it. My dear brothers and sisters and sons and daughters, please don't forget the story of Pakistan. And don't forget to narrate the story of Pakistan to your next generation, so that their bond with Pakistan, it never weakens. Whether it is the third generation or the fourth generation or the fifth generation, they know that what Pakistan is for them. आज तक इंसानियत की तारीख में सिर्फ दो रियासतें हैं जो कलमे की बुनियाद पर बनी हैं. पहली जो थी उसका नाम है रियासत तैयबा, क्योंकि तैयबा जो है वो नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने उसको नाम दिया था. और जबकि कुरान में उसका नाम है यसरब, या अहले यसरबा ला मुकाम लकुम फरजिउ, ये कुरान में नाम है उसका, जो आज जिसको मदीना अल मुनव्वरा कहा जाता है. और दूसरी रियासत जो है वो उसके 1300 साल के बाद अल्लाह ताला ने ये आपकी बनाई है कलमे की बुनियाद के ऊपर.
So one of the factors that we must consider as to why America is so desperate for Pakistan support, why is Trump hosting the Pakistan Army Chief, is because of what's happening in West Asia and the fact that US is trying to break that axis, the support that Iran has. Pakistan's location gives US strategic access near Iran. If it comes to military action, America will also be looking to getting Pakistan's support in kind of firing at Iran, because Pakistan's location is something that's critical for US. Pak Intel can support America's operations against Iran. US is hoping that with Pakistan not, and making it very clear that they're not going to help Iran, which they've, by the way, put out in a detailed statement. They are hoping that it means that they can get them to switch over and help America. US may even go ahead and use the Pakistani Navy to pile pressure on Iran by sending across a message to Iran that they're not just isolated but militarily have no support, that the Pakistan Navy is also on America's side. Now, Pakistani ties to Sunni terror groups can destabilize Shia Iran. And again, this will be back-channel talks essentially that can take place if America manages to convince Pakistan. And Pakistan has played its game very cleverly when it comes to America, which is how at this point it's come to the stage where America is essentially looking to Pakistan, their help, where they can use their Pakistani airspace, they can use their bases if it comes down to military action against Iran. So looking at what's happening essentially between Iran and Israel, that's perhaps why America is looking to Pakistan's support. But let's put out two pictures for you. There are questions being asked right now about what this means for India. That 2 months after the Pahalgam terror attack, you've got Trump going ahead and platforming this man, Asim Munir, in such a massive way. Remember when the Indian MP delegation had visited America, they met with the US Vice President, J.D. Vance. This was a delegation handpicked by the government. President Trump didn't find the need to meet them and yet chooses to meet with the Pakistan Army Chief, Asim Munir. And so there are questions being asked really about not just what this means for India, about what exactly America's positioning is on an issue like terror. Let me bring in Gaurav Sawant, who's been tracking the G7 for us. He's joining us from Canada. Gaurav, what do you make of this meeting between Trump and Asim Munir? To you, why does America really need or want Pakistan's support at this time?
It appears Pakistan and Pakistan's Field Marshal Asim Munir are once again being used by the United States of America. As this conflict between Israel and Iran intensifies, the United States would require additional bases in the region to target Iran from multiple sides. And all accounts seem to indicate that the United States may play a much bigger role in the Israel-Iran war in the days ahead. And that is why America is trying to shore up defenses in Pakistan. Now, what will America do? Use Pakistan's airspace and also perhaps use their air bases. This would be for intelligence operations. This would also be for surveillance, what is known as ISR, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance. It could also be used to mount offensive action against Iran. And just take this into consideration, Iran considers Pakistan a friend. There are leaders in Iran who have said that in case there's an attack on Iran, Pakistan will come to Iran's defense. On the contrary, Pakistan may actually be selling out Iran's interests to the United States of America for their personal interests. And that is because Pakistan desperately wants to be in America's good books, wants America's help for resumption of dialogue with India. And if you recall, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when Donald Trump sought that conversation and had a 35-minute long conversation with him, Donald Trump invited him to the United States of America at a time when Asim Munir was also there. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi very tactfully said, we will meet perhaps at a later date when you come to India for the Quad Summit. But right now, there are other engagements, and that is Prime Minister's visit to Croatia before he returns home. So this is where Pakistan is being used by the United States of America yet again.
But Gaurav, also, what does this mean for India, considering that, you're seeing the Pakistan Army Chief being platformed by Trump? Is it a loss of face for India, for Indian diplomacy? Gaurav, what do you think?
As far as India is concerned, India very clearly has not put all our eggs in the American basket, and that is why India remains multi-aligned. America is a very important strategic partner, but India is not reliant on America for any solutions. Even when Donald Trump claimed that he'd played a critical role in ensuring a ceasefire and used trade as a leverage, India countered it every time, from the Foreign Office to the Foreign Secretary to the Foreign Minister. And now you've had Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a direct conversation with the US President, making it very clear there was no conversation on trade. There was no role that the United States played in ensuring a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, because this is India's stated position. There cannot be any third-party intervention on Jammu and Kashmir. There cannot be any third-party intervention when it comes to Pakistan. As far as Operation Sindoor is concerned, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi very clearly told President Trump, this is the new normal. In case there's a proxy war, it will be seen as an act of war. In case there's terror, there will be a response. That conversation that US Vice President J.D. Vance had with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he said his intelligence inputs were that Pakistan is planning something big, India said if they are, India is planning to retaliate in something which would be even bigger. And that's exactly what we've seen. Look at India's template in Operation Sindoor. India was able to decimate not just 9 terror base camps and launch pads, including the headquarters of Lashkar-e-Taiba at Muridke and Jaish-e-Mohammed at Bahawalpur. But when Pakistan escalated trying to target military installations in India, India hit back, targeting 11 air bases in Pakistan, making them inoperable, and multiple radar stations and military cantonments, including Melir cantonment in Karachi and Pasroor and Chunian. So that's the kind of extent of India's power. It was Pakistan that sought a ceasefire, and that message, whether it comes out in public domain or not, at least Pakistani military leadership knows that. So next time when they try a terror attack, they would be prepared for something that could be Operation Sindoor plus. Each time, if you've noticed, there was a surgical strike in 2016 after Pathankot. There was a Balakot airstrike, like one location hit after Pulwama, and it was 13 plus air bases and radar stations plus 9 terror hubs after the terror attack that took place in Pahalgam. So India each time hits back much harder. Pakistan gets that message, for a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years at times, but you have to keep mowing the grass. That's the mindset that India must move with. That's exactly what needs to be done when you're dealing with state-sponsored radical Islamist terror propagated by the likes of Asim Munir, who may be supping with Donald Trump, but there's clear and present danger even for the United States of America, because Pakistan has had a role to play in terror attacks even in the United States of America.
And we wonder if US and America actually recognizes the imminent threat that Pakistan poses, considering how they house so many of these deadly terrorists. Thanks very much, Gaurav, for joining us with all of those details. As we track the latest on this, remember 10:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time is when that meeting will take place between Trump and Asim Munir. Let's switch back to what's happening between Iran and Israel. We've got breaking news coming in. You had the first public statement by Ayatollah Khamenei on live TV, and moments after that, Israeli jets reportedly struck Lavizan. This is the Tehran neighborhood in which the Supreme Commander of Iran is rumored to be hiding in. Iranian media had reported that Khamenei was moved to an underground bunker in Lavizan, located in northeastern Tehran. And right after that, right after his statement, it's exactly in this location that strikes have been conducted. And so questions are being asked on whether this is the clearest signaling and messaging from Israel that they are going after Khamenei, that they are going after the Supreme Commander of Iran. This comes after Netanyahu had issued a warning that assassinating the Ayatollah would be the end of the war, the end of the regime. And just last night, Trump also dropped a not-so-subtle bombshell in usual Trump style. He said, "We know where he is. We haven't taken him out yet." That's the post Trump had put out. So the message has been very clear from Israel and America. I want to bring in Pranay Upadhyay for more on this. Pranay, very clear signaling from the political leadership of Israel and America. That's followed now by military action, also signaling from the Israel military. What details have you been able to pick up on these strikes in Tehran, Pranay?
Let me give you the update first, Akshita. as per the latest information and the statement coming out from the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, that the Israeli Air Force is now attacking Iranian regime's military targets in Tehran area. So clearly the Tehran area, which is the capital of Iran, is largely being targeted by the Israeli Air Force, and the military targets are being engaged by the Israeli Air Force here. And also the information which we are picking up is that they are targeting not only the military headquarters but also the military leadership as well as the political leadership. This is the big crisis before Iran right now, at a time when the President of the United States has clearly put onus of de-escalation on Iran, and stating through his social media post that the unconditional surrender is the only option available before Iran. Whether Iran takes that option or not, because the statement coming out from Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself clearly stated that Iran is prepared for a war. This is the complete chaotic situation in Iran right now, because we as India also having our concern. We have around 10,000 people in Iran. We have started the evacuation process of Indian nationals from Iran, but still many Indians are stuck in the different parts of Iran because there are logistic challenges, because the roads are closed. Mostly roads are being used by the Iranian military and for their air defense, which you call as the pop-up air defense positions in Iran. So therefore the military operations by Israel on the Iranian territory has become a challenge as far as the evacuation operations are concerned. And also after 150 hours or more than 150 hours of the Israeli air operation and air strikes in Iran, now Israelis are kind of completely dominating the Iranian airspace, because they are hitting whenever they want, wherever they want, and this complete domination is also a kind of message for Iran. And Israel has already indicated, Akshita, that they might go for the Iranian leadership.
And Khamenei in that statement said the battle begins. That was his statement in his first public address since the conflict broke out. Israel sending across the very same message that the battle is underway by going ahead and striking the location where reportedly the Supreme Commander of Iran is in a hideout. We are going to track the latest on that. But as I slip into a short break, I'll also leave you with some of the images of Prime Minister Modi at the G7 summit. G7, of course, was concluded. There were a number of crucial bilaterals and some very significant photo ops there of Prime Minister Modi's bonhomie with world leaders.